Maran here for another My Week With video. So this week I'm driving the 2022 Toyota Camry TRD. So I've already spent a week with a TRD about 2 years ago, did a full review on one, but in this video I wanted to revisit the Camry TRD because not only does it look a little bit cooler now with this Cavalry blue color you can get for 2022, but they made a few improvements to it, and there's some new competitors to talk about compared to 2 years ago. And so I think that the positioning of the Camry TRD has kind of changed a little bit here from where it used to stand before, whenever its only competitor was the Honda Accord. And so about the Camry TRD, well, you can watch the review if you want to hear all the basics as far as the specs, how it drives, how it handles. Bottom line here for the Camry is that it still is a really nice cruiser. And so even though with the TRD version here, they stiffened up everything to make it handle better, so it's got stiffer springs, stiffer anti-roll bars, it has stiffer dampers, the ride is 0.6 inches lower, even the wheels are 3.1 pounds lighter each compared to a regular Camry wheel, and so much better turn-in, much better handling, all kinds of great improvements as far as all that goes here in the Camry TRD. And so it handles much better than a regular Camry, but with this V6 engine it isn't any faster than a regular Camry. It's still the same 301 horsepower, 267 pound-feet of torque. It'll still do the same 5.8 seconds 0 to 60, and it does it really well. This V6 is great, but we're coming up some corners here I always take. We'll sample the handling again. This one does have the all-season tires, but you can still get summer tires as an option here in the Camry TRDs, and it's a no-cost option, by the way, which is notable because some of the competitors will charge you a couple $100 for the summer tires. Not so here in the Camry, which is cool. So I mean, it handles itself really well. I still don't think it's the best handling vehicle in its class. I still think the Accord feels a little lighter and a little lower. But it still handles much better than a regular Camry. And so if you're someone who, doesn't want to do a bunch of aftermarket stuff to your Camry, but you still want, some enhanced performance beyond what you get with a regular Camry, I still think this is a really great sweet spot, as long as you're okay with not having a fully loaded Camry, which I'll get to in a minute, because this is still pretty bare bones the way they set this up, but it is the cheapest way to get the V6, so that's a nice perk. But still just drives really nicely. One thing though is I still do wish the exhaust was louder. I complained about this 2 years ago, but it has this TRD catback exhaust on it, and it has a little bit more growl than a normal Camry, but it's almost like I hear more induction notes still than I do out of the back. So it's going to be one of those things, if you do want to actually have a good healthy exhaust note out of your Camry V6, you're probably going to still want to go to the aftermarket for a louder exhaust, or maybe a muffler delete or something, I don't know. But I still wish they would have maybe amped it up and made this a little edgier to match the edgy looks, which are definitely far and away much more aggressive with the looks here compared to any of its other competitors. Even though it has all these suspension improvements, it still is super nice and soft and comfortable. I mean, maybe it's a tiny bit stiffer than a regular Camry over bumps and stuff, but considering the Camrys are already so comfortable, making this just a tiny bit stiffer still makes it a very comfortable cruiser, a great daily driver still nonetheless. So it's a very enjoyable thing to drive around in, and in a vacuum I have no complaints here with the Camry TRD. Even the fuel economy isn't too bad. So these are rated at 22 mpg in the city, 31 on the highway, and 25 combined. And so last time whenever I had one of these for a week, I was getting 21.5 mpg. It was actually right around the same time of year and everything as well. This go around I only got 19.5 mpg, but I think part of that is because I didn't do any highway driving. It was just around town, kind of back roads cruising at 35 miles per hour this week, and so as a result, the fuel economy is going to be a little bit lower here. If you drove on the highway and stuff, it would definitely be higher, but still, I mean, this is rated, again, at 22 in the city, and I am, over 2 mpg under that. Not ideal, especially these days with gas prices being as high as they are, but this is unique because this is the only competitor still to have a V6 engine. Everyone else has gone to 4-cylinder turbos now, and so you're going to pay a slight fuel economy penalty. It gets 1 to 2 mpg less than most of the competitors do, so very minor if you are someone who does prefer the V6 sound and power delivery. Speaking of that power delivery though, I mean, you really got to work for it with this motor because it doesn't make peak power till 6,600 RPMs. Redline is like 6,750. And so it means that you know, this motor definitely has to work, but it's definitely very eager and willing. This 8-speed automatic isn't anything different as far as its tuning. It's still the same as any other regular Camry V6, but you know, it all works together, especially in the sport mode here, to really give you some nice acceleration. It still wants to spin the tires there initially. There's no limited slip differential or anything, unfortunately, so it's in the same boat as all of its competitors who also don't have limited slip diffs in the front. It's a very fun experience, so it really just comes down to your personal preference. Do you want to have the immediate hit of the turbos that all the competitors have, or do you want to wait for your power a little bit more and ring it out a little bit more? And so both are fun, just in different ways. But so the last thing to really mention here that I really want to focus on in this video is how it compares to its competitors these days. So the only changes they made here between the 2021 that I reviewed and the 2022s here are that you now get the 9-inch touchscreen as standard, which is a nice upgrade over the tiny little 7-inch screen you had originally in the 2020s. That upgrade was put into effect in 2021 though, so if you get a 21, you'll still have the bigger screen. 21 also added blind spot monitoring, which is a nice little improvement that you have, and 21 also allowed you to get the Jbl Stereo as an option, although it's a $1,600 option, so it's pricey. But all those things were added in 2021. So 2022, the only new thing here is this Cavalry blue color. But you know, so as far as the value proposition, I still think the Camry is a good value in some ways. If you're someone who doesn't want all the bells and whistles of a Camry XSE V6, you know, this certainly makes a lot of sense, because base versus base is about $3,000 cheaper than an XSE V6 Camry. Now this one, having the Jbl Stereo Upgrade, which you do get in an XSE, by the way, automatically, but with that Jbl Stereo, that's $1,600 more, and then another $500 for this two-tone roof combination, which basically, with the way they do the colors here on the Camry TRD, there's only 3 colors, and the only way you can avoid the black roof is if you just go for an all-black car, but otherwise you're getting that extra $500 charge for that. So this one, as tested, is about $35,500, which is not as quite as good of a value proposition as they used to be back whenever they were, you know, 33.5 without any options on them. Obviously, again, those are options. That's the key word here. So you can still get one at $33,500 at that price point. I still think, you know, it can be a pretty solid value. But once you get up, you know, and you get the Jbl Stereo on here, you know, I mean, for only a couple $1,000s more, you could get, you know, even a Camry XSE V6 if you don't need to have this sharper handling. That gives you a head-up display. It gives you actual leather seats that are heated. You get a panoramic roof, a bunch of nice features. You can also have the option of getting cooled seats in those, and a bunch of other things as well. But it's only a couple $1,000s more for all those extra features. Heated steering wheel you can get in an XSE Camry. And so if you are someone who wants, you know, some of those nicer features, I still think that it makes a lot more sense to just go for the XSE Camry and do a few of these handling improvements on your own in the aftermarket if you want. But this price difference and the lack of features was always here for the Camry TRD here for the past 2 years. What hasn't always been here for the past 2 years that now is here is the Kia K5 GT and the Hyundai Sonata N-Line. So I recently, over the past year here, spent a week with both of those as well, which are direct competitors of this car, and they are bringing the heat, as Hyundai and Kia often do, making it a very challenging you know, proposition against this here, because what you get with the they're on the same platform, they use the same engine and everything. The Kia and the Hyundai give you a 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder, and it does 290 horsepower, so actually about 11 horsepower less than this, but you get about 50 more pound-feet of torque, 311 pound-feet of torque, and it makes those feel a lot punchier, even from a stop. I mean, they want to shred the tires a lot more, but even once you're up and moving, I mean, those things really pull a lot harder than this does. They also run a real 8-speed dual-clutch transmission, which is much quicker, sportier, snappier than this normal torque converter automatic in the Camry TRD. They also give you a lot more features for very similar money. So they'll come with panoramic roof as standard. They come with Bose stereo. They have a bigger touchscreen. There are 10-inch touchscreens in those as standard. And the Sonata actually gives you digital gauges as well, and you're still, of course, rocking the analog gauges here in this. And so you know, it's a lot of extra features, and in the Sonata's case, it's only $1,000 more than the base price of the Camry TRD, and so it actually comes in about $1,000 less than this Camry TRD, and it still, again, has, at that $1,000 less, more torque, the Bose stereo, digital gauges, bigger screen. It has Alcantara and leather instead of this having this like faux leather and cloth kind of combination, so a little bit nicer. They also have heated seats as standard in that Sonata N-Line and in the K5 GT. And then if you are someone who wants all the performance stuff and you want the handling upgrades, you know, the bigger brakes, the sportier suspension, but you still want heated steering wheel, you know, cooled seats, all those types of things, the K5 GT has an option package, which then puts it only about $1,000 more expensive than this car. It's about $36,500 for one of those. And with that, you get all those nice features. Now, the K5 GT unfortunately has analog gauges like this does, so you lose the digital gauges of the Sonata. So, you know, it kind of is going to come down to what exactly you want feature-wise as far as which one will be the best pick for you. But, you know, either way, whether you go for the Hyundai or the Kia, both of those would still be my pick. I still think they handle very similar to this. I think they're all still not quite as good at handling as the Accord Sport, but they're all still very good handlers. And in something like this, you're not looking for the absolute best handling possible anyway. You know, if you want to spend about this kind of money and you want super sharp handling, you want those limited slip diff and really advanced stuff, I would go for a Hyundai Elantra N. The Elantra N has all that stuff. It has an active exhaust, adaptive suspension with 4 different modes. You can get that in a manual. It has a real dual clutch again in that. So, you know, it's a little bit smaller, but it's, you know, not that much smaller than this. So if, you know, handling is your number one focus, I'd say that you're better off, you know, going for one of those. But if you are someone who just wants something a little more comfortable, a little bit larger, like all of these vehicles in this segment are, I think the Kia and the Hyundai are now the kings as far as, you know, the mid-sized family sedans, sporty family sedans goes with front-wheel drive. I think that those are definitely the way to go. And so, obviously, they don't have the great sound here of the V6, so that's the only thing you're kind of missing out on. But as long as you're okay going to the Turbo 4, they also do get, you know, 1 to 2 mpg better for the fuel economy, at least as far as the EPA rates them. And so that is another little perk as well, in addition to having the extra power. And so there's just a lot more there, and it's just a better value. They also have a longer 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty for both of those versus the shorter warranty you have here in the Toyota. Now, clearly, Toyota Camrys are bulletproof reliable. So if it is a car you're planning to keep for, you know, 200,000-300,000 miles, whatever the case is, this could still be the better choice for that as well. This motor is proven. But if you're keeping it 10 years or less, you got that warranty with the Hyundai and the Kia, and you still have, you know, all the great tech and, you know, the great performance of those models. Whenever this debuted in 2020, it was really cool and, you know, it was great. But now I think it's kind of lost its edge a little bit and isn't quite as compelling as it used to be. But anyway, so that's about all of my thoughts here on the Camry TRD. Overall, though, if you still are a Toyota fan or someone who really wants one of these Camry TRDs, I just think that it's really great that you have the blind spot monitoring here, that you have the bigger touchscreen. All those things kind of nicely modernize it and make it feel a little bit nicer than the 2020s for sure. And, you know, still, like I said, it's a very nice cruiser nonetheless, even if it isn't the best in its segment anymore. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the Camry TRD. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with the Camry TRD to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.